Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. This is our special episode number 21 as a continuation to our study as the final warning message just prior to the close of provision. Now let's read track number 3, page 76. It says, here we see commanded the observance of 3 harvest rites. Track number 3, page 76. Here we see commanded the observance of 3 harvest rites. Number 1, the ceremony of the wave sheep at the beginning of the first harvest. Second, the ceremony of the wave loaves at the close of the first harvest. And third, the Feast of Tabernacles at the close of the second harvest. Being typical, these 2 grained harvests with their literal sacraments accordingly foreshadow 2 soul harvests with 3 spiritual rites. The first of which is the first fruits with wave sheep and wave loaves. Now I would like to read again the statement. In track number 3 on page track number 3 on page 83, saying, and by the same token of logic, the wave sheep and the wave loaves must have a double application, each to the dead and to the living, together comprising the total fruits of the antitypical harvest. Track number 3, page 83. So, the wave sheep and the wave loaves must have a double application, each to the dead and to the living. Now, concerning the dead, we know that it was represented by the 2 inanimate objects, as stated in Revelation 11, verse 1 and 2, represented by the temple and the altar. So let's read track number 5, 109. The temple and the altar, inanimate objects, must characterize 2 classes of inanimate saints, the 2 classes of dead saints. And then it says, thus the temple, the first and the largest object, must represent the first and largest body of righteous dead, those from Adam's time to the beginning of the judgment in 1844. While the altar, a spatial and a smaller object, must represent a spatial and a smaller body of righteous dead, the righteous who died from 1844, and those and who are to come up in the spatial resurrection of Daniel 12 verse 2, Early Writings, page 285. So, we focus first our attention to the first two classes of dead saints. And that is represented by the temple. The temple consists the first 5 seals, and the altar concern the 6th seal. Because the first 6 seals are the seals which concerns the dead, the saints that will experience grave and be resurrected. And the last seal, the 7th seal, concerns the living. But we need to focus first to the dead. For the shepherd's rod declared in 2 SR 164, saying, unless the close of the judgment for the dead and the commencement for the living be made known to us, we would have no present truth, while the judgment for the living is in session. But before knowing the commencement of the judgment for the living, we need to have first complete understanding, complete information concerning the judgment for the dead. And at this time, we will be studying through the illustration of the ceremonial harvest, the wave sheep and the wave loaves. By which, according to track number 3, page 82 and 83, it has a double application, each to the dead and each to the living. So the statement, each to the dead, can be easily understood. There must be first fruits represented by the temple and second fruits represented by the temple. There must also be first fruits represented by the altar, first fruits, second fruits represented by the altar. So the 2 grains were given by God to illustrate 2 souls, or 2 soul harvests, according to track number 3, page 76. Being typical, these 2-grained harvests with their 3 literal sacraments accordingly foreshadow 2 soul harvests with 3 spiritual rites. So, the 2 grains, barley and wheat, employed by God to illustrate the 2 soul harvests. By which, represented by the first fruits and represented by the second fruits, each to the dead and each to the living. So, we need now to study. Who are they? The first fruits of the first inanimate object represented by the dead saints, which is the temple, and also the first fruits represented by the altar, as well as the second fruits. Now, I would like to read tract number 3 on page 80. It says, from these facts, it can more clearly be seen that those whom Christ took with him were the living wave ship and the only one that has been offered in the heavenly sanctuary. So, who are they, the only one that has been offered in the heavenly sanctuary? Those that had been resurrected on the first advent of Jesus Christ. Who are they that had been resurrected on the first advent of Jesus Christ? In early writings, 184, when Jesus, as he hung upon the cross, cried out, "It is finished," the rocks rent, the earth shook, and some of the graves were opened. When he arose a victor over death and the grave, while the earth was reeling and the glory of heaven shone around the sacred spot, many of the righteous dead, obedient to his call, came forth as witnesses that he had risen. Those favored rising saints came forth glorified. They were chosen and holy ones of every age, from creation down even to the days of Christ. Every age. And in this study, it was illustrated by the 7 seals. The entire generation, from creation down to the general cause of provision, or even to the second visible coming of Jesus Christ, it were always illustrated by the 7 seals, according to 2 SR 201 and 202. But if you will read 2 SR 221, saying summary of commencement and termination of seals, the seal from creation down to Christ is only the first 3 seals. First seal, second seal, and also the third seal. So the statement in early writings 184, saying in every age, plainly indicating that some of the resurrected saints had been resurrected, chosen from the first seal, some chosen from the second seal, and some of them are chosen on the third seal. Why 3? Because there are only 3 classes of saints to be judged in the holy place. Who are they? according to track number 5, 109 and 110, they are the temple, the altar, and the worshippers. Because the court is no longer to be measured or investigated. Where? In the holy place. And such judicial proceedings in the holy place were illustrated by these three representatives. Therefore, some of them are first of the first fruits, represented by the temple, first fruits represented by the temple, first of the first fruits represented by the altar, first fruits represented by the altar, and first of the first fruits represented by the worshippers, and first fruit represented by the worshippers. By which these three that had been resurrected were the type, not the antitype. So, all of them are typical. Typical first of the first fruits under the temple. Typical first fruits under the temple. Typical first of the first fruits under the altar. Typical first fruits under the altar. And typical first of the first fruits represented by the worshippers, and typical first fruits represented by the worshippers. Now, do not forget that according to track number 3, page 80, they are the only ones that had been offered in the heavenly sanctuary. So, one of the main reason that they had been resurrected, because they have a special duty to perform in the heavenly sanctuary. And that is, they were represented by the typical first of the first fruits, typical first fruits, each to the dead and each to the living. According to the shepherd's rod, right? Now, I will no longer elaborate because we studied it several times. That such occurrence in the heavenly sanctuary began in the year 1844. Because that is the focal point. According to 2SR 191, the word hereafter point forward directly to 1844. Now let's read the old symbolic code. Three symbolic code, 5 and 6, page 13. 3 symbolic code, 5 and 6, page 13. I would like to read first on page 12. The question is, are the first fruits of the dead also of the living? I think I need to answer directly so that to become it more easier. The resurrection that took place in the days of the first advent of Jesus Christ, first 6 a.m. Jesus Christ was resurrected at 6 a.m. and there are also, together with him, had been resurrected at 6 a.m. And then the second resurrection is 9 a.m. 3 hours interval. Who are they that had been resurrected in 6 a.m.? The first of the first fruits. First of the first fruits. Who are they that had been resurrected at 9 a.m.? First fruits. But who are they? The type. So the first of the first fruits that resurrected at 6 a.m. are 3 classes. 1, 2, 3. Why? Because there are 3 classes of saints to be judged in the holy place. First of the first fruits of the temple. First of the first fruits of the altar. First of the first fruits of the worshippers. The same with the first fruits. 3 classes. Remember, all of them are type. First fruits of the temple. First fruits of the altar. And first fruits of the worshippers. So, that is, brothers and sisters, three classes, each of them. So we will focus first, the first of the first fruits under the temple. So, let us read again. The statement in 3 Symbolic Code 5 and 6, page 12 and page 13. Some of those portions I no longer read because to minimize time. So, for example, 3 hours interval. And pointing to the resurrection after Christ's resurrection. Now here on 3 Symbolic Code 5 and 6, page 12, are the first fruits of the dead also of the living? The answer would be no. There are different entities. The first fruits of the temple is not the first fruits of the altar. The first fruits of the altar is not the first fruits of the worshippers. Each of them had particular first fruits. The same with the first of the first fruits. The first of the first fruits of the temple is not the first of the first fruits of the altar. The same with the worshippers. Each of them, there must be first of the first fruits. And we are talking first the type. Who are they? Those that had been resurrected on the first advent of Jesus Christ. Those that had been resurrected at 6 a.m., and those that had been resurrected at 9 a.m. Now let us read 3 symbolic code, 5 and 6, page 13. This query is answered in track number 3. The harvest in the illustration on page 44, of which the barley sheaf of the first fruits is pictured in type and antitype. It says, that is, the ceremonial sheaf of barley prefigured by the resurrection of Christ, the first fruits including those who arose with him. And then it says, these resurrected ones constituted the spiritual sheep, which at the beginning of the judgment of 1844 was offered before the Father as a sheep offering of the living first fruits. This paragraph need to be carefully studied. First, what 1844 mentioned here? Gregorian calendar, Bible calendar. Now, all of us knew that the last month of the Gregorian calendar is December. December 31. Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place in Gregorian calendar, that is October 22, 1844. Of course, the next month must be November. And there are 30 days. And then December, 31 days. Of course, after December 31, the next year must be January 1, 1845. Now, this is the question. Is there any offering of the sheep in the month of October? Is there any offering of the sheep in the month of November? Is there any offering of the sheep in the month of December? None. Because the wave sheep is offered only on the Passover week. And there is no Passover week on October, November, and December. Therefore, 1844 here could not be Gregorian, that is Bible calendar. Because if this 1844 is Gregorian, then we will be saying that there is an offering of wave sheep. Either October or November or December. That is in total absence. There is no such example or there is no such statement. So we need to study first, when does the wave sheep is offered in the presence of the Lord. Let's read 13 Symbolic Code 5 and 6, page 23. 13 Symbolic Code 5 and 6, page 23. Take next the wave sheep, which is typical of the resurrection of Christ, having to be offered during the Passover week. and on no other day but on the morrow after the Sabbath, on the first day of the week. When would be the worship is offered? On the Passover week. And there is no Passover week. On the month of October, neither November, neither December. Only on the first month of the Bible, April. Obviously, therefore, 1844 mentioned here cannot be Gregorian, but rather the Bible calendar. Let me read to you tract number 6. On page 30, tract number 6, page 30, it says, the key of the interpretation to this honey is found in Revelation 10 verse 10. And I took the little book, says John, out of the angel's hand and ate it up. And it was in my mouth sweet as honey. And as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. This honey sweetness represents the joy that came to the believers in William Miller's time through their wholehearted belief that the Lord was coming to the fall of 1843 AD to take them to their home in the land that is very far off, where their eyes would see the King in his beauty. Isaiah 33 verse 17. But as the day passed and the expected event failed to materialize, then overwhelming disappointment as depicted by the little book's turning bitter came to everyone who in honest expectancy yearningly anticipated that long-hoped-for journey through the starry heavens to the city, Foursquare, the capital of the earth made new. Now, brothers and sisters, it says the disappointment fall on October 1843. We know that the disappointment occurred in 1844. Gregorian calendar. Therefore, that 1843 in tract number 6, page 30, that is Bible calendar. Because October 22, 1844, Gregorian calendar, in Bible calendar, that was October 11, 1843. So the disappointment mentioned in tract number 6, page 30, by which the shepherds had categorically declared it was in 1843, that is Bible calendar. That is not Gregorian, because in Gregorian, the disappointment took place in 1844. Even that predicted event in the book of Daniel, according to the shepherd's rod, 508 AD and 538 AD, in reality, that was Bible calendar. I would like to read the statement. And 133 on 2SR. To SR 133. To ascertain the prophetic time when the seventh-day Sabbath daily and the truth sanctuary were trodden underfoot, and Sunday observance with its pagan priesthood set up in their stead, it would necessary to subtract 1,335 years from 1844, which would point back to 508 AD. Dealing with the Hebrew calendar. So, 508 AD, 538 AD, 1844, that is dealing Hebrew calendar or Bible calendar. Now, let us go back to that statement in 3 symbolic code. Let's go back again to the reading given by the words of inspiration. 3 symbolic code 5 and 6, page 13. That it was in 1844 by which the sheaf of barley was offered in the presence of God the Father. The sheaf of barley, meaning the first of the first fruits. So let us now concentrate on that sanctuary service concerning the first harvest rite. Let us read tract number 3. Tract number 3. On page 76. Let us read. Being of cut stalks of grain, the wave sheaf signified fruits to be harvested. It says, so the wave sheaf, one of the significance of the wave sheaf is a signal that the fruits are to be harvested. And as the sheaf was to be offered before the sickle was put to the grain and gathered into sheaves, it obviously pointed forward to a spiritual harvest of first fruits to be gathered. So there are two significance, hoping that you could help me. The significance of the offering of the wave sheaf. The significance. The significance of the offering of the wave sheaf. Number 1, the wave sheaf must be offered in the presence of the Lord. In order to harvest the wheat. Second, the worship must be offered in the presence of the Lord in order to gather the barley that had been harvested. So that is the significance of the waving of the worship. There are two significance. First, it is signal that God authorized them to harvest the wheat. Or God permitted them to harvest the wheat. And the second significance is that they were already allowed and permitted by God to gather the barley that had been harvested. So, those are the two significance of the waving of the worship, which is the first of the first fruits. Now, we know that the worship must be offered in the presence of the Lord on the first day of the week. Let us make a principle again. When does the worship will be offered? When does the worship will be offered? Number one, it must be offered on the special day, special day of the week. And that is on the first day, which is commonly called Sunday. Second, it must be offered during the celebration of the Passover week. Third, it must be offered on the first Sunday after the 15th of April. So that is the three divine principles by which the worship must be offered. And since there are 7 patterns of Bible calendar, there must be a year by which the worship is offered on the second day of the feast, third day of the feast, fourth day of the feast, fifth day of the feast, sixth day of the feast, seventh day of the feast, eighth day of the feast. There is no celebration by which the worship will be offered on the first day of the feast, because it must be the first Sunday after the 15th, not the 15th itself. So there are only 7 different patterns by which the worship is offered. Second day of the feast, third day of the feast, fourth day of the feast, fifth day of the feast, sixth day of the feast, seventh day of the feast, and eighth day of the feast. Do we have that Bible pattern? From pattern number 1, we have that diagram. It was offered okay. So, that is Pentecost. Worship. Okay. Pattern number 1, the worship is offered on the 5th day of the feast. What is the first day of the feast? 15. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Therefore, that is April 19. Put it April 19. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. April 19. Sunday. Now, pattern number 2, the worship is offered on the second day of the feast, that is April 16, Sunday. Now, pattern number 3, 6th day of the feast, that is April 20, Sunday. Pattern number 4, 3rd day of the feast. So that is 17, April 17, Sunday. Pattern number 5, 7th day of the feast. So that is April 21, Sunday. Pattern number 6, 4th day of the feast, that is April 18. That is the Bible pattern of calendar by which Jesus Christ was resurrected. April 18, Sunday. Then pattern number 7, 8th day, that is April 22, Sunday. So those are the 7 patterns of Bible calendar by which the worship is offered in the presence of the Lord. If that year is pattern number 1, the sheep will be offered on the 5th day of the feast. If that year is pattern number 2, it must be on the 2nd day of the feast. If that year is pattern number 3, that is 6th day of the feast. If that year that is pattern number 4, that is 3rd day of the feast. If that year is pattern number 5, that is 7th day of the feast. If that year is pattern number 6, 4th day of the feast. For example, the year by which Jesus Christ was resurrected, 31 AD, that is pattern number 6. That is why Jesus Christ was resurrected on April 18, Sunday. If that year is pattern number 7, that is 8th day of the feast, April 22. So, that is the 7 patterns of the Bible calendar by which the worship is offered in the presence of the Lord. Now, let us now study closely, brothers and sisters. What is the type? the type is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That is pattern number 6. So let us read again the statement. In tract number 3, 1934 edition. So let's read. On page 66, or page 6, on the 3rd edition. It was during the 40 days of Christ's personal presence with his disciples from his resurrection to his ascension that the first fruits, the 120, were gathered in. His presence among them has a deep meaning, and it should be understood by every disciple of Christ. If these 40 days have no other significance, they certainly bear the thought of his personal care over the ingathering of the fruit. But shall we say this vigilance was true only during his short stay with his laborers in that particular time? Such thought would not entertain the truth of his being the only Savior from everlasting to everlasting. Lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. Matthew 28 verse 20. Is he not the same vigilant Savior of the Old Testament as well as the New? Indeed, moreover, his personal care in gathering his people in those 40 days, which we see to be a type of his supervision of the ingathering of the fruits in every generation, should therefore reveal that he is the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world and the Good Shepherd in all ages. So what a wonderful statement. Brothers and sisters, that in this we can declare that Christ is all in all. I remember that statement in track number 8. On page, let me see. Here the shepherd's rod says that Christ is all in all. Track number 8 on page 46. It says, wherefore says Christ, I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star, Revelation 22:16, bearing out that he is all and in all. So we have only one type. To reveal the ingathering of all the saints in all generations. According to the shepherd's rod. And that is from Christ's resurrection to his ascension. And that is the type. That the resurrection of Jesus Christ, by which Jesus Christ stayed 40 days, to his ascension, should serve as the type. Brothers and sisters, type of what? To all the gathering, both to the dead and to the living. Now here we see how wonderful the scriptures and perfect. I would like to say again that you can read from Genesis to Revelation. There is only one single verse by which you can read the statement infallible proofs. Only in Acts chapter 1 verse 3. Only in Acts chapter 1 verse 3. But the question is, why is it that it is in verse 3? And why is it that it is in chapter 1? Because the occurrence on the resurrection of Jesus Christ revealed four entities. The resurrection of Jesus and the resurrection of the three selection from the first three seals. Those that had been resurrected on the first seal, second, and third. But why is it that in tract number 3, page 86, it says, the 40 days in Acts chapter 1, verse 3 and 9? Why is it that it is in verse 9? Because it points out to the second resurrection. At 9 a.m., 3 hours interval from 6 a.m., 3 hours interval, 9 a.m. And that is also the very hour by which the 120 disciples received the Pentecost at 9th hour or 9 a.m. Although in ancient timepiece of clock, that is 3rd hour. But in our modern timepiece of clock, that is 9 a.m. Very significant. Right? Number 9. The same with the statement in 1SR Packet Edition, page 37, that the Bible reveals in tremendous ways, and there are 9 mediums employed by God to reveal the wondrous structure of the plan of redemption. Enumerated one by one, that the Bible reveals its tremendous truths in diverse ways. First, numerics. Second, symbols. Third, figures. Fourth, parables. Fifth, allegories. 6 dreams. 7 visions. 8 types. And 9 providences. There are 9 mediums God employed to reveal the tremendous truths of the plan of redemption in diverse ways. 9 mediums. Now let us go back to the offering of the wave ship. When was the very first offering of the wave ship took place? 1844. According to 3 symbolic code. Let us read again. 3 symbolic code, 5 and 6, page 13. But since we already explained that the offering of the wave ship must be only on the Passover week, according to the shepherd's rod, according to the Bible, according to the writings of Ellen G. White. Therefore, the 1844 mentioned here cannot be the Gregorian. Because when Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place, the Gregorian calendar in 1844, there are only 3 months that had been left. October, November, December. And after December 31, that is January 1, 1845. And there is no such occurrence by which God commanded His people to offer wave ship offering on the month of October, neither on the month of November, neither on the month of December. Then absolutely, therefore, this 1844, it is Bible calendar, not Gregorian. Because we already read in tract number 6, page 30, that the disappointment took place in 1843. And you might say, Bithotep was mistaken. No. Bithotep is familiar that the disappointment took place in 1844. But that is Gregorian calendar. In Bible calendar, 1844 is 1843. And also, perfectly corroborating to that statement, I would like to read. Let's read. 1 SR Packet Edition, page 71. 1 SR Packet Edition, page 71. In some instances, the coincidental events may, according to our present calendar, appear to be a year ahead or a year behind, due to the fact that the first month of the Mosaic calendar falls in the fourth month of the present calendar year. 1 SR Packet Edition, page 71. So that statement is absolutely correct, that the Bible calendar and the Gregorian calendar is only 1 year behind or 1 year ahead. You see, Gregorian 1844, Bible 1843. 1 year behind, 1 year ahead. Or 1 year earlier than the other. So that statement in 2SR 255, 256, let us enumerate earlier than the other. So let us place the word earlier than the other. Earlier than the other. Number 1. One year earlier than the other. Number 2. 1 month earlier than the other. Number 3. 1 day earlier than the other. Number 4. I don't know how to use the correct grammar. 1 date earlier than the other. Concerning the date, for example, October 11, the other is October 10. So 1 date earlier than the other. So those are the 4 earlier than the other. Although we will focus that on as we proceed. Let us go back again to the very first offering of the wave ship in 1844, by which that 1844 is Bible calendar, not Gregorian. Now we will show to you our first diagram. So to help the brethren. So 237, the wave ship and the wave lobes. Okay. And those who wish to have such diagram, do not hesitate to request and send email to us so that we could send to you the PDF file. So that is the first one. You see, E1044, that is Bible calendar, by which the worship is offered, the first of the first fruits. But first of the first fruits of what? Of the temple. Remember, there are only 3 classes of the saints to be judged in the holy place: temple, altar, and worshippers. By which such proceedings, brothers and sisters, involve the waving, the offering of the wave sheep, and the offering of the wave loaves. Do not forget the statement in tract number 3, page 80, that the only ones that have been offered in the heavenly sanctuary are those that had been resurrected by Jesus Christ at his first advent, but divided into 2. Those that had been resurrected at 6 a.m., they are the first of the first fruits. Do we have that enumeration? Did I give? The resurrection at the first advent of Jesus Christ. Let us first, to benefit our brethren who are following this program, let us just type the resurrection on the first advent of Jesus Christ. Number 1, 6 a.m. No, let us define first. Put hyphen. On 6 a.m., April 18, Sunday, those that had been resurrected, let us put first April 18, 31 AD. I think it's beneficial. 31 AD. Okay. Those that had been resurrected together with Christ's resurrection, they are the first of the first fruits. The first of the first fruits are divided into 3. Number 1. The bottom. Number 1. The first of the first fruits those that had been resurrected chosen from the generation under the first seal, from 4000 BC to 2344 BC. Open and close parenthesis, C2SR 221. Number 2, the first of the first fruits, those that had been resurrected, from the generation under the second seal, from 2344 BC to 1921 BC. Third, the first of the first fruits, those that had been resurrected from the generation under the third seal, from 1921 BC to 31 AD. Okay. Then, the second resurrection. Do not include in your bracket because that is already number 2, 9 a.m. Those that had been resurrected after Christ's resurrection. At 9 a.m. April 18, 31 AD. They are the first fruits. Period. The first fruits are divided into 3 classes. Number 1, the first fruits those that had been resurrected at 9 a.m. April 18, 31 AD, Sunday, chosen from the generation under the first seal, from 4000 BC to 2344 BC. Number 2, the first fruits, those that had been resurrected at 9 a.m. April 18, 31 AD, Sunday, chosen from the generation under the second seal, from 2344 BC up to 1921 BC. Third, the first fruits, those that had been resurrected at 9 a.m. April 18, 31 AD, Sunday. From 1921 BC, chosen, for example, chosen from the generation under the third seal. From 1921 BC to 31 AD. Okay, so all in all, there are 7 together with Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, then the first 3 first of the first fruits, and the 3 first fruits, 6 plus 1 equals 7, indicates completeness. So, we need now to show to you how they had been offered in the heavenly sanctuary to represent the first of the first fruits of the temple, the first of the first fruits of the altar, the first of the first fruits of the worshipers. So let us now categorize another description. The typical first of the first fruits. So, the typical first of the first fruits. Number 1, those that had been resurrected at 6 a.m. April 31, April 18, 31 AD rather, April 18, 31 AD, the chosen from the generation under the first seal, from 4000 BC to 2344 BC, are the representatives as the first of the first fruits of the temple. Second, those that had been resurrected at 6 a.m. April 18, 31 AD, the chosen from the generation under the second seal, from 2344 BC to 1921 BC, are the representatives as the first of the first fruits of the altar. Number 3, those that had been resurrected at 6 a.m., April 18, 31 AD, the chosen from the generation under the third seal, from 1921 BC to 31 AD, are the representatives as the living, typical, first of the first fruits of the worshippers, which is the 144,000 living saints, spiritual Israel. Third seal. No, continue. Third seal. It's so because ancient Elijah the Tishbite, as the representative of the 144,000 living saints, was translated under the generation of the third seal. So that is the typical first of the first fruits. Now let us go to the typical first fruits. Okay, number 1. Those that had been resurrected at 9 a.m., April 18, 31 AD, the chosen from the generation under the first seal, from 4000 BC to 2344 BC, are the representative as the typical first fruit of the temple. Number 2, those that had been resurrected at 9 a.m. April 18, 31 AD, the chosen. We forgot to play Sunday. April 18, 31 AD, Sunday. And also April 18, 31 AD, Sunday. The chosen from the generation under the second seal, from 2344 BC to 1921 BC, are the representatives as the typical first fruit of the altar. Number 3, those that had been resurrected at 9 a.m. April 18, 31 AD, Sunday, the chosen from the generation under the third seal from 1921 BC to 31 AD are the representatives as the living type of the first fruits of the worshippers, which is the 144,000 living saints, spiritual Israel. Thank you very much. So, hoping that those enumeration could help us in our study to make it even more easier for us to comprehend these precious truths. So let's go back to our diagram, the wave shape and the wave lobes. So, if you could see at the bottom, April 31 and May 31, that is the type. That is pattern number 6. That is the type. And that typical event, the waving of the ship, is pointing first to the prototype. Pointing to the two inanimate objects, temple and altar. And since the shepherd's rod already told us that the very first offering of the wave ship took place in the year 1844. 3 symbolic code 5 and 6, page 13. And we already explained to you that 1844 cannot be Gregorian, because that offering of the wave ship, of course, it is Jesus Christ who will offer that wave ship in the presence of God the Father. Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place October 22, 1844, Gregorian calendar. And the remaining months of the Gregorian calendar is only October, November, and December. And there is no such occurrence that God commanded His people to offer the wave ship on the month of October, neither on the month of November, neither on the month of December. Of course, January, on Gregorian calendar, that is already another year, 1845. Absolutely, therefore, 3 symbolic code, 5 and 6, page 13, that must be Bible calendar. And we have such divine clue, because in track number 6, on page 30, it says that the disappointment took place in 1843. Therefore, it could not be Gregorian. Because in Gregorian calendar, that this appointment took place in 1844. Then absolutely, that statement in tract number 6, page 30, is pointing to the Bible calendar. Because according to 1SR, Packet Edition, page 71, the Bible calendar and Gregorian calendar is 1 year ahead and 1 year behind. Sometimes, the Bible calendar is 1 year ahead and the Gregorian is 1 year behind. Sometimes, the Bible calendar is 1 year behind and the Gregorian is 1 year ahead. According to the statement in 1SR Packet Edition, page 71, which is absolutely perfect. Because in 1844, the Bible calendar is 1 year behind and the Gregorian calendar is 1 year ahead. The one is 1843, the other is 1844. Although it points out to the same day, only the figure of number. Because October 22, 1844, when Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place, supposed to be in, if that is Bible calendar, that is October 11. Now, so we already found out, because in reality, Bible prophecy must be reckoned by Bible calendar. And it was even stated in 2SR 133. It says 508 AD, 538 AD. It says dealing Hebrew calendar or dealing Bible calendar, not Gregorian. So that 538 AD, that 1798 AD, no, that is not Gregorian calendar. That is Bible calendar. So without the restoration of the Bible calendar, it utters the impossibility that we could be able to trace down and to trace forward, brothers and sisters, the Bible time prophecy, more particularly the 6,000 years prophecy. Why is it that the 6,000 years prophecy is very important? It's so because in tract number 3, page 54, the shepherd's rod says that the harvest must be perfectly calculated. Otherwise, the representation can lead only into error instead of into truth. What is the purpose? Why is it that the harvest must be perfectly calculated? In order to illustrate the spiritual kingdom. Because in reality, the spiritual kingdom is even more important to observe than the literal, physical, premillennial kingdom, due to the fact that according to Answerer number 2, page 90, that if you failed to be a part of that God's spiritual kingdom, then you could never gain admittance on that literal, physical kingdom. And the only way that you could be able to understand, brothers and sisters, the spiritual kingdom is to perfectly calculate the subject concerning the harvest. And according to one symbolic code, number 14, page 11, I already stated Answerer number 2, page 90, concerning spiritual kingdom. The two paragraphs in Answerer number 2. Now, brothers and sisters, in one symbolic code, number 14, on page 11, it says that harvest is the last part of provisionary time. Harvest is the last part of provisionary time. And then in track number 3, 1934 edition, on page 71, it says that there are 6,000 years of provisionary time. And when does that 6,000 years will begin? From the fall of man, or from the time when Adam and Eve were fallen into sin. Therefore, in order for us to ascertain clearly the period of the harvest, we need to perfectly calculate the 6,000 years prophecy, because the last part of that 6,000 years prophecy is the harvest. Harvest of what? There are two sections of the harvest. Harvest of the first fruits and harvest of the second fruits. And we will be trying to elaborate it gradually, because it is a deep subject and we are studying how to present it in a very comprehensible manner. Although deep subject is very hard to make it easy. The easiest way of the deep subject is still deep, because that is the production in 12 Symbolic Code 6 and 7, page 18. The truth will become deeper and deeper until the wicked will no longer be able to comprehend it. So, the subject will become deeper and deeper. Now, if you still remember, brethren, in track number 3, on page 56, it says, as his ministry, his sowing of the good seed, the truth began right after his baptism. Matthew 4 verse 17, therefore to establish the beginning of the parabolic harvest period, we must ascertain the date he was baptized. That paragraph need to elaborate, because that is not just a simple paragraph. It reveals wondrous structure of the plan of redemption, and it reveals completely the parabolic harvest period. Because that is the statement. In order to establish the beginning of the parabolic harvest period, we must ascertain the date he was baptized. Therefore, the baptism of Jesus Christ, the same with the crucifixion, there is an important role to play in the plan of redemption. We need to concentrate the date, the day, the year, the month by which Jesus Christ was baptized. Because, brothers and sisters, that is the only way that we could be able to establish the beginning of the parabolic harvest period. Although the promise was, I would like to read here in track number 3. Let me read to you. Track number 3 on page 64. Track number 3, page 64. Do the true meaning and time of the harvest is greatly confused by some and confusing to many. A close study of the word will clear it in just a simple manner as it cleared both the time of the seed sowing and the period of the wheat and the tares. You see, it says, a close study of the Word of God. The shepherd says, do the true meaning of the time of the harvest is greatly confused by some and confusing to many. But the promise was, it says, a close study of the Word will clear it in just a simple manner as it cleared both the time of the seed sowing and the period of the wheat and the tares. And the only way that it will be revealed is only through and by the channel of inspiration. Only by the same Spirit that inspired Bitihotep. That Spirit that inspired Bitihotep must be transmitted to antitypical Joshua. And he will be the one to relate the entire Shepherd's Rod publications. That is God's method. I remember the statement in track number 3 on page 88. On page 89, it says, "Now that the reader may be strengthened to hold fast to this fundamental and all-important truth, as well as to all other truths, we urge him to follow God's method." We need to follow God's method. What is God's method? Only through inspiration in studying the scriptures, that he may thereby avoid the many snares. You want to avoid the many snares? Follow God's method. And the only method employed by God is that through the channel of inspiration. Inspiration must be your only teacher. Track number 1, page 44. And according to the old symbolic code, it says, the old symbolic code, 2 symbolic code 3 and 4, page 13. 2 symbolic code, number 3 and 4, page 13. The following quotation plainly shows that only inspiration, a man called of God, can declare the truth and nothing but the truth. I would like to read again 2 symbolic code 3 and 4, page 13. 2 symbolic code number 3 and 4, page 13. The following quotation plainly shows that only inspiration, and that is a man called of God, can declare the truth and nothing but the truth. Even in 2SR page 78, it says, interpretation is correct only when inspired by the same Spirit, thus timely utterances are revealed. 2SR page 78. So, the divine principle is that if there is anything in the Shepherd's Rod which is not clear, only Bitihotep himself, the writer of the Shepherd's Rod publication, should be consulted concerning it if he is living. Answerer number 1, page 47. This rational sequence consistently concludes that when a point in one's writings is not clear, then only the writer himself should be consulted concerning it if he is living. Who is the writer of the Shepherd's Rod? Bitihotep. Therefore, Bitihotep himself should be consulted concerning it if Bitihotep was still alive. But since Bitihotep was already dead, it says, otherwise, only the same spirit of inspiration, the original author of the writings, can clarify whatever is involved. The original author of the Shepherd's Rod is God himself, because it is called the Rod of God. Therefore, only by the same spirit of inspiration that inspired Bitihotep can clarify whatever is involved in the Shepherd's Rod publications. And that is the predicted antitypical Joshua. The rod of God taken from the hand of Moses passed into the hands of Joshua. And also that Joshua, the high priest, being the only one who can enter the holy place and most holy place as illustrated in the sanctuary service built by Moses as stated in 2 SR 187. Therefore, God communicate only to Joshua according to the shepherd's rod. God did not communicate to all the congregation, only to Joshua. And it is only Joshua who relate the story. And it is up to the congregation whether to believe or to doubt the words of Joshua, to reveal and deny his authority. Every individual has an absolute freedom of choice. So, brothers and sisters, we will continue this subject and we will gradually show to you how God revealed the entire plan of redemption by the last 7 years in the 490 years, in the 70 weeks from Christ's baptism to his crucifixion up to the stoning of Stephen. Within that last 7 years, that occurrences revealed the entire plan of redemption in Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary, by which, according to the great controversy 489, that the intercession of Christ in man's behalf in the sanctuary above is as essential to his death upon the cross. And the plan of redemption, the plan of salvation had been laid down by God from his crucifixion, but it was completed in heaven to Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. And that is the very message that we are informing, giving information to all the living saints that had been scattered throughout the whole world. Thank you very much, brethren. See you tomorrow. We love you so much and hoping to see you in God's kingdom. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.